Your legs are not weakening simply because you're getting older. That's the sentence everyone accepts, and it's incomplete. What's actually happening is more specific and more fixable than that sentence lets on. And by the end of this, you'll know exactly which 7 foods address it, and why each one works through a different mechanism, not just a repeated eat healthy message, dressed up 7 different ways. Before the list, one thing worth sitting with for a moment. If you've noticed stairs feeling harder, or getting up from a low chair taking a visible push, you've probably already had someone tell you that's just what happens after 60. It's a tidy explanation, and it's also the reason most people never look any further than that, since there's nothing to actually do about a sentence like that except accept it. What we're covering today isn't a rejection of aging. It's a more accurate, more specific description of what's actually changing in the muscle itself, which happens to come with a list of things you can genuinely act on starting tonight. Quick and honest note before we start. Sudden, severe, or one-sided leg weakness, especially with numbness or real balance trouble, deserves a doctor's evaluation, since it can point to a nerve or circulation issue needing direct attention. What we're covering is genuine nutritional support for ordinary age-related muscle decline, not a diagnosis and not a substitute for one. Here's the mechanism worth understanding before the list makes sense. Your leg muscles are the largest in your body, under constant daily demand, which is exactly why they show wear first. But the deeper issue isn't just less muscle, it's your muscle becoming less responsive to the normal signals that would rebuild it, something researchers call anabolic resistance. The muscle can still rebuild, it just needs a stronger, more specific signal to actually respond, the way an older smoke detector needs a louder trigger to sound the same alarm. Think about what that actually means day to day. You could be eating roughly the same amount of protein you always have, doing nothing differently, and still losing ground. Not because your effort changed, but because the amount that used to be enough simply isn't anymore. That's a frustrating thing to learn if nobody ever explains it, since it makes it feel like nothing you do matters. It's actually the opposite. It means the fix isn't more willpower, it's a more specific, more concentrated approach to a handful of things, which is exactly what today's 7 foods are built around. Start with eggs because this is where that signal gets addressed most directly. Eggs deliver a concentrated dose of leucine, the specific amino acid that has to cross a threshold before your body switches on muscle rebuilding. In younger muscle, a modest amount of protein clears that threshold easily. In older muscle, the same amount often falls short, not because anything's wrong with the food, just because aging muscle needs a larger single dose to trigger the same response. 2 whole eggs at a sitting is a reasonable way to clear that threshold in one meal, rather than spreading a thin amount of protein across the day and never quite getting there. The yolk matters here too, not just the white, since it carries choline, a nutrient involved in cell membrane maintenance throughout the body. Muscle cells included alongside a portion of the egg's overall protein. Here's where it gets interesting, because the next one addresses something eggs don't touch at all. Fatty fish, salmon, sardines, mackerel, works through inflammation and efficiency rather than through leucine. A controlled study found that when older adults regularly included omega-3 fatty acids, the actual rate at which a meal got converted into rebuilt muscle tissue ran measurably higher than in older adults without that regular intake. That's a subtle but important distinction from what most people assume omega-3s do. It's not just calming general inflammation in the background, it's specifically improving how efficiently the protein you eat at that same meal gets put to use, which is a different, more direct mechanism than simply being anti-inflammatory in a vague sense. Stack that on top of the egg point from a moment ago and you get something genuinely practical. A fatty fish meal isn't just protein. It's protein your body is measurably better equipped to use once. It arrives 2 separate mechanisms working on the same problem in a single plate. Stay with me, because the next one works on blood flow specifically, not muscle-building signals at all. Spinach and other leafy greens carry dietary nitrate, which your body converts into nitric oxide, the molecule that relaxes blood vessel walls and lets more blood, and the oxygen it carries, actually reach working leg muscle. This is the same basic pathway we'll come back to shortly with a much more concentrated source. But leafy greens are worth including on their own since most people already eat some version of them regularly, which makes consistency far easier than it is with a food you have to remember to buy specially. Leafy greens are also one of the more reliable food sources of magnesium, and magnesium is a genuine cofactor your muscles need to relax properly after contracting. Part of a much longer list of reactions in the body, magnesium is involved in. I want to be honest about how solid that magnesium cramping connection actually is, because it's often overstated in exactly the kind of video we're trying not to be. Low magnesium status shows up alongside cramping in observational research, meaning the two tend to appear together, but controlled trials specifically testing whether magnesium supplements resolve cramps have produced mixed, not uniformly convincing, results. It's a reasonable food-based piece of the puzzle, not a guaranteed fix on its own, and treating it as one would be overselling a genuinely useful but incomplete piece of evidence. Now, Greek yogurt, and this one's about protein quality specifically, not quantity. A cup of plain, full-fat Greek yogurt delivers a concentrated, efficiently absorbed protein, including the three-branched chain amino acids, leucine, isoleucine, and valine, most directly used by muscle tissue. Here's a specific, somewhat counterintuitive finding worth knowing. A review pooling studies of milk-based protein supplementation in older adults doing resistance training found that strength actually improved only once the dose reached at least 22 grams of protein. Roughly, what a cup and a half of Greek yogurt provides below that amount, the effect essentially disappeared. And here's the part that genuinely surprised me. Several studies using whey protein alone, at similar or even higher doses, showed no added strength benefit over resistance training by itself, while the more complete milk-based protein, casein and whey together, the kind you actually get from yogurt rather than an isolated powder, was what produced the real result. Sometimes the whole food outperforms the isolated ingredient it's famous for, and this is one of those cases. Here's a genuine surprise for anyone assuming vegetables can't compete with protein on this list. Beetroot, specifically, carries a more concentrated dose of the same dietary nitrate found in leafy greens, and it's been tested directly in exactly the population this video is about. Researchers gave older adults, average age 69, and a separate group of young adults nitrate-rich beetroot juice daily for a week, then measured the actual contractile function of their calf muscles. Directly, not a questionnaire, not a self-reported feeling, direct measurement of how the muscle itself contracted under controlled conditions. The older group showed a real measurable improvement in how forcefully that muscle contracted. The young group showed essentially nothing because their muscle was already running efficiently enough that there was little room to improve. That detail matters. This isn't a universal performance boost. It specifically helps muscle that's already lost some efficiency with age, which is precisely the population watching this right now, not a competitive athlete looking to shave seconds off a race. I want to be equally honest about a separate finding here, the same way I would with any real research rather than only sharing the flattering result. A different trial gave beetroot juice to healthy older adults for a short period and tested real-world outcomes directly, walking speed, chair rise time, grip strength, and found no meaningful change. Both results are real. The muscle level improvement was measured with sensitive lab equipment over a week. The everyday functional test may simply need longer than that to show up on an actual staircase, or the specific outcome measures used may not have been sensitive enough to catch a smaller, real improvement happening underneath. Neither finding should be hidden to make the story sound cleaner than it actually is. And if a video tells you beetroot alone will have you bounding upstairs within days, that's a claim the actual research doesn't fully support yet. Now, extra virgin olive oil. And here's where I want to correct a claim you may have heard elsewhere, because the real research is interesting enough without exaggerating it. A laboratory discovery, now 2 decades old and repeatedly cited since, found that a compound in fresh, high-quality olive oil, called oleocanthal, inhibits the same inflammatory enzymes, COX-1 and COX-2, that ibuprofen targets at a comparable strength, measured directly in the lab. That's a genuinely notable finding, since chronic low-grade inflammation is one of the things that quietly interferes with muscle repair over years, the same slow background process that makes recovery from ordinary daily use take longer than it used to. It's worth understanding why that matters specifically for legs. Your leg muscles absorb more repeated daily stress than almost any other muscle group simply from standing, walking, and climbing stairs, which means they're also generating more of the low-level inflammatory signaling that comes from ordinary wear and tear. A compound that dampens that signaling doesn't build new muscle by itself, but it can mean less of what you do build gets quietly undone by background inflammation before it has a chance to stick. What that finding does not tell us, despite what some videos claim, is a specific percentage reduction in sarcopenia from drizzling it on your vegetables, since the original research measured enzyme activity in a lab setting, not muscle outcomes in actual people over years. The honest version is this: a real anti-inflammatory mechanism demonstrated at the enzyme level, reasonably extended to everyday use as part of an overall pattern that supports muscle repair, not a clinically proven cure for muscle loss standing on its own. And finally, creatine found naturally in red meat and fish, at levels well below research study doses, but present nonetheless. This is one of the most consistently studied compounds in exercise science for older adults specifically, and here's the actual number behind it rather than a vague "the research supports this." A meta-analysis pooling 22 controlled trials, 721 older participants with an average age in the 60s, found that creatine combined with resistance training increased lean muscle mass by an average of just over a kilogram more than resistance training alone, and increased leg press strength specifically, not just a general strength score, by a real, statistically meaningful margin. Worth noting that same pooled data showed a more consistent effect on leg strength than on upper body strength, which lines up neatly with exactly what this video is about: a modest, regular serving of red meat or fish, alongside a habit of using your legs on purpose most days, is a far more realistic way to access this than trying to eat enough of either food alone to match a laboratory supplement dose. So here's how these 7 fit together practically, without needing an elaborate meal plan. 2 eggs at a meal for a concentrated leucine dose. Fatty fish 2 or 3 times a week for the omega-3 efficiency boost. Leafy greens most days for nitrate and magnesium, since they're the easiest of the 7 to actually keep up daily. A cup and a half of Greek yogurt for efficient, complete protein, keeping that dose detail in mind rather than a small spoonful that falls short of where the actual benefit was measured. Beetroot a few times a week. Understanding the clearest benefit is in the muscle tissue itself, which may take longer than a week to show up on the stairs. Real extra virgin olive oil as your regular cooking fat for its genuine, lab-demonstrated anti-inflammatory mechanism, checked for a harvest date rather than only an expiration date, since fresher. Oil carries more of the actual compound involved. And red meat or fish for creatine, deliberately paired with some form of regular leg loading activity, since that pairing is where the actual evidence sits, not in the food eaten alone. None of this requires precision or perfection. Missing a day, or forgetting one of the 7 for a week, doesn't undo the pattern the same way one missed day of any habit rarely undoes months of consistency. What actually matters is the general shape of most days, most weeks, adding up over the months it takes for muscle tissue to genuinely respond and rebuild, not a rigid checklist you either complete perfectly or fail entirely. Think of it less like a strict prescription and more like a direction you're generally leaning in, week after week, which is a far easier thing to sustain for years than a rigid plan most people abandon within a month. One thing worth saying plainly before we close: none of these 7 replace actually moving your legs regularly. Muscle responds to being used consistently, and food determines how well your body can act on that use, not a substitute for it. The best diet in the world, paired with legs that never get loaded, is still working with one hand tied behind its back, no matter how many of today's 7 foods make it onto your plate. And if what you're feeling is sudden, severe, one-sided, or paired with numbness or real loss of balance, that's a reason to see a doctor, not a reason to wait and see if diet helps first. Ordinary age-related muscle decline responds to what we've covered today, gradually, over weeks and months of consistent effort. Sudden or asymmetric weakness is a different category entirely, and it deserves proper evaluation rather than being quietly assumed away or blamed on a diet that simply needs more time. Your legs are not weakening simply because you're getting older. We said that at the start, and it's worth restating now that you actually know why. It's muscle tissue that's become harder to signal, not incapable of responding. And these 7 foods, paired with actually using your legs, are a genuinely researched way to make that signal land. Again, none of it depends on a rare ingredient or a dramatic before and after. It depends on ordinary food, used consistently, understood accurately, which is a far more honest promise than most versions of this video make, and in the end, a far more useful one. That stairway that stopped you halfway isn't a fixed verdict on the rest of your life. It's a signal about what your muscle needs more of, and now you know specifically what that is. Tell me in the comments which of these 7 you're adding first. I read every single one myself. And if this helped you separate the real research from the exaggerated version of it, subscribe, because that's exactly what we'll keep doing here. One honestly reported food at a time.